Most relationships don't end with shouting, betrayal, or dramatic goodbyes. They end quietly, slowly, almost politely. And that's what makes it dangerous. There are behaviors that don't look harmful on the surface. No insults, no arguments, no obvious red flags, just silence, distance, small changes no one talks about. And yet, these quiet behaviors destroy more relationships than any explosive fight ever could. You don't notice them at first. You adapt, you excuse them. You tell yourself it's normal. But deep down, something feels off. Conversations feel shorter. Eye contact lasts less. Emotional responses feel delayed or forced. And without realizing it, the connection you once felt starts slipping away. Psychology shows that the human brain is highly sensitive to emotional signals, even the ones never spoken. When these signals disappear, the mind begins to detach. Not because love is gone, but because it no longer feels reinforced, safe, or alive. What's terrifying is this: by the time most people realize what's happening, the damage is already done. The relationship hasn't exploded, it has eroded. And erosion is easy to ignore until there's nothing left to hold on to. In this video, we're going to uncover the silent behaviors that quietly dismantle relationships from the inside. Not the obvious ones, the subtle ones. The ones people mistake for maturity, patience, or independence, when in reality, they're emotional withdrawal in disguise. If you've ever felt someone slipping away without knowing why, or if you've ever wondered how something that felt solid slowly became distant, stay with me. Because once you see these patterns, you'll start recognizing them everywhere. And more importantly, you'll know what to do before it's too late. One of the most destructive silent behaviors in relationships is emotional withholding. Not punishment, not anger. Just a subtle reduction in emotional availability. Shorter replies, less enthusiasm. Fewer questions. Psychologically, the brain relies on emotional feedback to maintain attachment. When that feedback weakens, even slightly, the mind begins to feel unsafe. Not threatened, but uncertain. And uncertainty is where emotional distance begins. People often justify this behavior as needing space or avoiding conflict. But unspoken withdrawal sends a powerful message. Something is wrong, and you're not allowed to know what it is. The brain hates ambiguity. When clarity is absent, it fills the gaps with doubt, insecurity, and fear of rejection. Over time, the person on the receiving end starts adjusting. They speak less. They share less. They stop initiating. Not because they don't care, but because the emotional reward has become unpredictable. And that adaptation quietly weakens the bond. What makes emotional withholding so dangerous is that it feels passive. No one is technically doing anything wrong, but psychologically, something essential is being removed. And relationships cannot survive long without emotional responsiveness. Another silent behavior that destroys relationships is unspoken resentment. When disappointments are not expressed, they don't disappear, they accumulate. Each ignored feeling becomes emotional weight, quietly altering how you see the other person. Psychology shows that suppressed resentment changes perception. Small flaws start feeling bigger. Neutral behaviors feel intentional. Innocent mistakes are interpreted as patterns. And because nothing is spoken, nothing is corrected. The mind builds a private narrative the other person never gets to respond to. This is where emotional distance deepens. You begin protecting yourself instead of connecting. You keep conversations surface level. You avoid vulnerability, not because you don't care, but because caring now feels risky. Unspoken resentment also changes tone. Your voice becomes colder, your patience shorter, your warmth inconsistent, and the other person feels it, even if they can't explain it. Humans are highly attuned to emotional shifts, especially in close relationships. Over time, this silent tension creates a false sense of stability. There are fewer fights, but also less intimacy, less honesty, less closeness. The relationship appears calm on the outside while quietly collapsing underneath. Another silent killer in relationships is avoidance of difficult conversations. Not arguments, not confrontations, just the refusal to address discomfort. It seems harmless, maybe even mature, but psychologically it creates unresolved tension that lingers like a shadow. When issues go unspoken, the mind fills in the blanks. You begin imagining motives, assigning blame, and rehearsing scenarios that may not even exist. This internalization slowly rewires your emotional responses. Every interaction becomes filtered through doubt and suspicion, even if the other person has no ill intent. Avoidance also signals something crucial to the brain. That connection is conditional. If emotions are dangerous or conversations are off limits, the subconscious interprets the relationship as unstable. Safety, the foundation of attachment, weakens. And without perceived safety, emotional intimacy starts to fade. Over time, avoidance compounds with emotional withholding and unspoken resentment. The combination creates a silent web of distance. Neither party may realize how much has shifted until interactions feel flat, effortful, and strained. And by then, emotional withdrawal has become a habit, one that can take far longer to undo than a single argument ever would. Another behavior that quietly erodes relationships is selective attention. This is when one partner becomes inconsistent in noticing, appreciating, or acknowledging the other. Compliments become rare, effort goes unrecognized, small gestures are overlooked. Psychologically, humans rely on reinforcement to maintain emotional connection. Recognition, appreciation, and validation are like fuel for attachment. When attention becomes inconsistent, the brain begins to devalue the relationship, not consciously, but automatically. Emotional investment decreases because the mind stops receiving predictable rewards. Selective attention often appears harmless, even accidental, but in reality it communicates a subtle message. Your presence is not fully valued. Over time, this alters behavior. The partner who is less noticed may begin withdrawing, matching the lack of acknowledgement. A cycle of detachment forms, driven entirely by subtle, unspoken signals. Couple this with emotional withholding, unspoken resentment, avoidance, and you have a perfect storm. The relationship doesn't crash, it quietly fades. The bond remains, but the depth disappears, and the tragedy is that it all happens without a single raised voice. The silent behaviors that destroy relationships are invisible, but powerful. Emotional withholding, unspoken resentment, avoidance of difficult conversations, and inconsistent attention may seem harmless, or even mature, but psychologically, they erode trust, intimacy, and attachment. Relationships don't always end with fights or betrayal. Most quietly unravel because of what isn't said or done. Understanding these patterns is the first step toward protection. Awareness allows you to spot the silent erosion before it becomes irreversible. Once you recognize the subtle withdrawal, you can take conscious steps to reintroduce connection, clarity, and emotional reinforcement. Here's a challenge for you. For the next week, observe your own interactions. Notice where silence, withdrawal, or inconsistency has crept in, both in yourself and your partner. Pick one silent behavior and consciously replace it with acknowledgement, presence, or honest communication. See how small changes ripple through the relationship, not by force, but by intention. And if this insight resonates, let it travel quietly. Share it in small ways, apply it in your life, and watch how subtle understanding changes everything. Because the most powerful lessons in relationships aren't shouted, they're observed, felt, and acted upon. Keep watching, keep noticing, and see how silently transformative your awareness can be.